My kings and my queens of the divine race, peace and blessings. I'm Geetan, and today I want to talk about something that could save you years of pain, heartbreak, and wasted energy. Letting go sounds simple when you say it fast. Two little words, let go, like it's just a choice you make on a Tuesday afternoon, and suddenly your heart becomes light, your thoughts become quiet, and you stop caring. But anyone who has ever tried to release a person, a memory, a betrayal, a dream that died, or a version of life that never happened, knows the truth. Letting go is not a switch. It is a practice. It is a skill. It is a form of inner strength that most people don't develop until life forces them to. Because letting go doesn't feel like relief at first. It feels like loss. It feels like you're removing your armor while the battle is still going. It feels like stepping away from something that was familiar, even if it was painful. And the hardest part is that the mind will try to convince you that holding on is love, that holding on is loyalty, that holding on is courage, when in reality, holding on is often fear wearing a noble mask. Fear of being alone, fear of regret, fear of uncertainty, fear of not being chosen, fear that if you release them, you release your value, fear that if you stop replaying what happened, you'll become weak, fear that if you stop fighting the past wins. But here's the first reality Stoicism will force you to face, and psychology will confirm: what you cling to controls you. Not because it's powerful, but because your attachment gives it power. If your peace depends on someone's apology, you are not free. If your happiness depends on someone's behavior, you are not free. If your self-worth depends on someone staying, you are not free. If your mood depends on the outcome, you are not free. And freedom, real inner peace, begins when you stop outsourcing your emotional state to things you cannot control. This is the heart of Stoicism. It begins with one brutal but liberating line: some things are up to you, some things are not. Epictetus didn't say that to make you cold. He said it to make you calm, because most suffering is not caused by events. It is caused by the mind's demand that events should have been different. Psychology says something similar, just with different words. Much of emotional distress comes from cognitive fusion. When you merge with a thought and treat it like reality. When your mind says, I need them, and you accept it as truth. When your mind says, I can't move on, and you accept it as destiny. When your mind says, this shouldn't have happened, and you accept it as law. So the path to letting go begins with a new relationship to your thoughts. You don't need to erase the past. You need to stop living inside it. You don't need to stop feeling. You need to stop being ruled by what you feel. You don't need to become numb. You need to become grounded. And grounded people are dangerous in a good way because they don't beg for closure. They don't chase explanations. They don't negotiate with disrespect. They don't build their self-esteem on someone else's mood. They accept reality and then they shape their response. Now here's the mistake most people make. They think letting go means pretending it didn't matter. They think letting go means minimizing the love, the effort, the hope, the time. They think if it mattered deeply, they must hold on forever. But letting go doesn't say it didn't matter. Letting go says it mattered, and I am still choosing peace. Letting go is not denial. It is acceptance with discipline. It is the decision to stop bleeding for someone who refuses to stop cutting. It is the decision to stop carrying a story that keeps your chest tight. It is the decision to stop rehearing conversations you can't change. It is the decision to stop living in what if and start living in what now. So in this video, we're going deep. Not surface-level advice, not motivational quotes that sound good, but collapse under real pain. We're going to combine Stoicism, the philosophy of inner mastery, with modern psychology, the science of the mind, to give you practical tools you can use when letting go feels impossible. We'll talk about why attachment becomes suffering, how your nervous system keeps you bonded to what hurts, the Stoic method of emotional control, cognitive distortions that trap you in the past, boundaries that protect your mind, the difference between love and dependency, and how to rebuild inner peace when you're grieving something that's still alive, because yes, you can grieve a person who is still breathing. You can grieve a relationship that still exists but no longer feels safe. You can grieve a version of life you were certain was coming, and that grief is real. It needs structure, it needs healing, it needs clarity. So let's begin with the foundation, the Stoic dichotomy of control. Epictetus said, "Some things are in our control and others not." What is in your control? Your judgments, your choices, your values, your actions, your discipline, your boundaries. What is not in your control? Other people's emotions, other people's maturity, other people's loyalty, the past, the outcome, the timeline. And most suffering is created when you try to control what belongs to the second list. When you keep texting someone who keeps ignoring you, you're trying to control their feelings. When you replay the betrayal for the 100th time, you're trying to control the past. When you keep explaining your worth to someone who refuses to see it, you're trying to control their perception. Stoicism calls this madness. Psychology calls it rumination, emotional dependency, and reinforcement loops. Either way, it steals your peace. So the first practice is this: separate the world into two boxes. Box 1, mine to control. Box 2, not mine to control. Then live like a disciplined person who respects reality. When a person disappoints you, you don't collapse. You ask, what part of this is mine? Your boundary, your response, your standards, your next move. Now that sounds clean on paper, but emotionally the body resists. The body says, but I love them. The body says, but we have history. The body says, but what if they change? The body says, but if I let go, I'm giving up. And this is where psychology helps. The body doesn't cling because it's logical. The body clings because it's conditioned. Attachment is not only emotional, it's neurological. If a relationship was unpredictable, sometimes loving, sometimes distant, that unpredictability can create a stronger bond. This is called intermittent reinforcement. It's the same mechanism that makes gambling addictive. When rewards are inconsistent, the brain tries harder. It chases the next win. So when someone gives you affection, then withdraws, then returns, your nervous system learns to chase them. not because they're right for you, but because your brain is hooked on the pattern. This is why letting go can feel like withdrawal, because in many cases it is. And now you can stop judging yourself. You can stop saying, "Why am I so weak?" You're not weak. You're conditioned. But the good news is, what is conditioned can be reconditioned. And this is where Stoicism becomes your training ground. Because Stoicism isn't just philosophy. It's mental conditioning. It's discipline. It's emotional strength built through practice. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, not to impress anyone, but to train himself. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Notice what he didn't say. He didn't say control people. He didn't say force outcomes. He didn't say make life fair. He said control your mind. That is inner peace. So today you and I are building a system, a mental system that helps you let go. And the first step in that system is a question that requires honesty. What are you holding on to? Not the surface answer, the real answer. Are you holding on to the person or the fantasy? Are you holding on to love or the fear of being alone? Are you holding on to the relationship or the identity you had inside it? Are you holding on to hope or the avoidance of grief? Because sometimes what you call love is really resistance to pain, and you cannot heal what you refuse to name. So here's your first exercise. Don't skip it. Don't just listen. Use it. Take a breath and ask yourself, what am I still trying to control? What am I still waiting for? What am I still hoping will happen that keeps me stuck? What am I afraid will happen if I truly let go? Write it down if you can, or say it out loud, because the moment you name it, you reduce its power, because vague pain becomes manageable pain when you bring it into the light. Now, in the next block, we're going to talk about the most misunderstood concept in letting go: detachment. Not cold detachment, not emotional shutdown. Stoic detachment, healthy psychological detachment, the kind that lets you love without losing yourself, the kind that lets you care without carrying, the kind that protects your peace without poisoning your heart. Detachment is one of those words that people hear and instantly misunderstand. They picture a man with no emotions, no warmth, no connection. They picture someone who doesn't care. But Stoic detachment was never about becoming numb. It was about becoming stable. Detachment means you stop clinging to outcomes as if your life depends on them. It means you stop treating external things like they have the authority to decide your inner state. Here's the difference. A detached person still loves, but they don't beg. A detached person still cares, but they don't chase validation. A detached person still tries, but they don't sacrifice self-respect. So detachment is not "I don't feel." Detachment is "I refuse to be controlled by what I feel." Psychology would call this emotional regulation, boundaries, and self-differentiation, the ability to stay connected to others without losing your identity. And identity is the first battlefield of attachment, because when you attach to someone deeply, your mind begins to merge them with your sense of self. You don't just want them, you need them to confirm your worth. You need their attention to stabilize your mood. You need their approval to feel safe. That is not love. That is emotional dependency. Love is "I choose you." Dependency is I can't function without you. Stoicism teaches self-sufficiency, not in the arrogant sense but in the grounded sense. The Stoics believed your peace should be built on virtue, not on conditions. Seneca warned about this. When you make your happiness dependent on someone else, you become vulnerable to constant emotional slavery. So, how do you practice detachment in real life? First, you train your mind to see the truth. Everything outside you is temporary. People change, feelings change, circumstances change. Even your own desires will change. The person you miss today might not even be the person you'd want a year from now. The mind romanticizes because it fears emptiness. It edits reality like a movie trailer, showing the highlights and hiding the pain. So the first tool is what psychology calls cognitive reappraisal and what Stoicism calls seeing things as they are. Marcus Aurelius practiced this constantly. He would describe things in plain, unromantic terms to strip them of emotional exaggeration. So when your mind says, "I lost the love of my life," you practice reappraisal. I lost a relationship that included love and also included pain. I lost a person who chose not to stay aligned with me. When your mind says, "I can't move on," you practice reappraisal. I am in withdrawal from attachment and my nervous system needs time to recalibrate. Moving on is a process, not a moment. When your mind says, "I'll never find someone like them," you practice reappraisal. There are billions of people. I'm projecting scarcity because I am grieving. My future is not limited to my past. This isn't positive thinking. This is accuracy. Letting go requires accuracy. Now, the second tool is emotional boundaries. Boundaries are not walls. They are doors with locks. They protect what's sacred, your mind, your time, your energy. Many people don't struggle to let go because they love too much. They struggle because they lack boundaries. They keep checking the person's social media. They keep rereading old messages. They keep visiting old places. They keep asking mutual friends for updates. They keep reopening the wound. And then they say, "Why can't I heal?" Because you're not healing, you're rehearsing. So the Stoic move is discipline. Not dramatic, not emotional. Just disciplined. You don't have to hate them. You just have to stop feeding the attachment. Here's a practical boundary. No contact with the stimulus that triggers longing. If you can't let go of a person, stop consuming their presence digitally. Stop checking their profile. Stop staring at their pictures. Stop reading their quotes like they were written for you. That is not love. That is self-harm with nostalgia. And psychology confirms exposure to reminders reinforces neural pathways. When you keep touching the memory, you keep strengthening it. So you need a detox. Not forever, but long enough to regain control. Now, detachment also requires acceptance of one painful truth. Closure is often a decision, not a conversation. Most people wait for closure like it's a gift someone else must give. But the person who hurt you may never explain. They may never apologize. They may never understand. So if your healing depends on their maturity, you are trapped. Stoicism says, don't depend on what you can't control. So you decide closure. I accept that this ended the way it ended. I accept that I may never understand everything. I accept that my peace matters more than my questions. This is hard because the mind believes unanswered questions are dangerous. The mind thinks, if I don't understand, I can't be safe. But here's the deeper truth. You can be safe without knowing everything. You can be at peace without answers. You can move forward without clarity from the past. Now let's bring psychology back in. Attachment often disguises itself as unfinished business. That business is emotional processing. So here is a key practice. Grieve what you lost without reopening what hurt you. Grief is the correct response to loss. Rumination is the incorrect response to loss. Grief says, this hurts, and I allow myself to feel it. Rumination says, this hurts, so I will replay it until it stops hurting. But replaying doesn't heal, it deepens the groove. So you need a structure to grieve. Here's a structure. Name what you lost. Be specific, not, I lost them. Say, I lost daily connection. I lost the future I imagined. I lost the identity of being chosen. I lost comfort. Validate the pain. Don't shame yourself. Say, it makes sense that this hurts. Release the fantasy. Say, what I miss is partly real and partly imagined. Reclaim your power. Say, my life continues. My mind is mine. My future is open. This is detachment in action. Now there's one more thing that makes letting go difficult. Your ego. Sometimes we don't hold on because we love them. We hold on because we can't accept the idea that we weren't chosen, that we weren't valued, that we were replaceable. That's not love. That's ego injury. And here's where Stoicism is ruthless, but healing. Your worth is not negotiable. It doesn't rise and fall with someone's opinion. If someone leaves, it doesn't prove you're unworthy. It proves they were not aligned. Alignment is peace. Misalignment is suffering. So you practice detachment by repeating a line that may save your life emotionally. I do not chase what does not choose me, not out of bitterness, out of self-respect. In the next block, we'll talk about stepping back, how to create mental clarity when emotions are loud, how to regulate your nervous system, and how to stop reacting in ways you later regret. Because letting go isn't just philosophy, it's nervous system training. There are moments when life feels like a storm inside your chest. Your thoughts race, your body is tense, your emotions feel urgent, and you want to do something, anything, just to stop the discomfort. This is where most people sabotage themselves. They text the person they're trying to let go of. They call, they argue, they beg, they stalk, they overshare, they explode. They make decisions that feel good for 10 minutes and hurt for 10 months. Stoicism teaches a skill that is almost supernatural in modern society, the pause. Because between stimulus and response, there is space, and in that space is your power. But you can't access that space when your nervous system is hijacked. Psychology calls this emotional flooding. When the body is in fight or flight, the logical part of your brain goes offline. You don't think, you react. So before we talk about letting go, we need to talk about the body. Because letting go is not only a decision, it's a state. If your nervous system feels unsafe, it will cling to anything familiar, even pain. So, lesson 3 is this. Step back to regain mental clarity. Stepping back does not mean avoiding reality. It means refusing to handle reality while you're unstable. Think about it. You wouldn't perform surgery with shaky hands. So why make life decisions with a shaky mind? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Power over your mind begins with power over your state. So here's the first practical tool, the 10-second rule. When you feel the urge to react, to text, to argue, to prove yourself, pause for 10 seconds. Breathe in slowly through your nose for 4 seconds. Hold for 2 seconds. Exhale for 6 seconds. That exhale is not just calming. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the part of you that signals safety. It helps the brain come back online. During that 10-second pause, ask one question. What response will I respect tomorrow? Not what feels good now. Not what proves a point. Not what satisfies ego. What will you respect tomorrow? This single question can save you from regret. Now, the second tool is perspective shifting. When emotions are intense, you get tunnel vision. You believe, this is the end. This is unbearable. This defines me. This will last forever. But emotions distort time. They make temporary pain feel permanent. Stoicism teaches perspective through a concept called the view from above. Imagine looking at your life from a higher place, from the sky, from space, from the perspective of time. Ask, will this matter in 5 years, in 1 year, in 1 month, in 1 week? Not to minimize your pain, but to shrink the illusion of catastrophe. Psychology calls this decatastrophizing. Stoicism calls it wisdom. Now, here's a third tool. Distance creates truth. Sometimes you can't see reality because you're too close to it. Like a painter standing 2 inches from the canvas. So step back physically when possible. Go for a walk. Change rooms. Move your body. Movement interrupts emotional loops. And if you can't move physically, step back mentally through journaling. Here's a powerful journaling method. Write the situation like you're describing it about someone else. Then write what advice you would give them. You will be shocked how wise you become when you step outside your own emotional storm. Now, we need to talk about control, because letting go is deeply connected to control. Many people cling because they believe control equals safety. If they can manage the relationship, manage the person, manage the outcome, they won't get hurt. But control is an illusion. You cannot control another person's choices. You can only control your standards. This is why boundaries exist. Boundaries are the adult form of control. They don't control others, they control access to you. So here's a key Stoic question to ask when overwhelmed. What part of this is mine? Is their mood yours? No. Is their immaturity yours? No. Is their inconsistency yours? No. Is your response yours? Yes. Is your boundary yours? Yes. So stepping back is the moment you reclaim your ownership. Now let's go deeper. Why do we struggle to step back? Because we confuse urgency with importance. Emotions create urgency. Wisdom creates importance. The Stoics believed urgency is often the enemy of virtue, because urgency makes you act from impulse, not principle. So, here is a Stoic practice you can borrow: delay. When you feel overwhelmed, delay the decision. Tell yourself, I will not decide this today. I will not respond in this emotional state. I will revisit this when I'm calm. This is not avoidance, this is maturity, and psychology supports it. Emotions change. If you delay, you often prevent damage. Now, stepping back also helps you detect what you're actually reacting to. Sometimes you're not reacting to the present situation, you're reacting to an old wound. A person cancels plans, and suddenly you feel abandoned. A partner becomes distant, and suddenly you feel rejected. A friend criticizes you, and suddenly you feel worthless. That reaction may be connected to earlier experiences, childhood patterns, trauma, insecurity. Modern psychology calls this emotional triggering. Stoicism would call it misjudgment. So stepping back allows you to ask, what story am I telling myself right now? Because the story creates the suffering. If the story is, they don't care, so I'm unlovable, the pain becomes massive. But if the story is, they may be struggling, I can handle this with calm, the pain becomes smaller. You don't always know the truth, but you can choose the most disciplined interpretation, the one that protects peace. Now, this doesn't mean tolerating disrespect. It means responding wisely. Stepping back gives you the space to choose boundaries without rage, to leave without drama, to detach without cruelty. And that's what inner peace looks like. Calm decisions. Now, in the next block, we're going to move into the hardest area, knowing when to distance yourself from people. Because some people are not challenges, they are drains. Some situations are not growth, they are slow poison. Stoicism teaches compassion, but it does not teach self-betrayal. One of the hardest decisions in life is knowing when to distance yourself, because distancing feels like betrayal, especially if you're loyal, empathetic, and you don't like hurting people. But here's the reality. You can't heal in the same environment that keeps injuring you. Some relationships don't break you in one dramatic moment. They wear you down slowly. They drain your energy, blur your boundaries, and make you question your own sanity. And what makes it even harder is that toxic relationships are rarely toxic 100% of the time. They often include moments of warmth, just enough to keep you hoping. So how do you know when it's time to distance yourself? First, understand this. Not everyone who is close to you is good for you. Proximity does not equal alignment. Stoicism talks about choosing your company wisely. Seneca said, "Associate with those who will make you better." That's not arrogance. That's strategy. So here are the signs it may be time to distance. Consistent emotional exhaustion. After interacting with them, you feel drained, tense, or heavy. Almost every time. You're always explaining your boundaries. Healthy people respect boundaries quickly. Unhealthy people negotiate them endlessly. You're shrinking. You're not growing into yourself. You're editing yourself to avoid conflict, rejection, or criticism. You feel anxious more than safe. Love is not supposed to feel like constant fear. Your peace becomes the price of connection, and that is too expensive. Now psychology adds depth. People stay in unhealthy dynamics due to guilt, fear, and attachment patterns. Guilt says, if I leave, I'm a bad person. Fear says, If I leave, I'll be alone. Attachment says, if I leave, I'll lose myself. But here's the truth. Setting boundaries is not cruelty, it's clarity. You're not obligated to keep someone close just because you share history. History explains connection. It doesn't justify suffering. Now, what does distancing look like? Distancing does not always require a dramatic breakup. Sometimes the healthiest move is quiet withdrawal, less access, less emotional exposure, less time, less availability. You don't need to announce your boundaries like a press conference. You can simply live them, because people who respect you will adjust. People who use you will complain, and that complaint is information. Now here's a powerful practice: the trial separation. For 2 weeks, reduce contact. Stop seeking updates. Stop explaining yourself. Stop performing emotional labor. During that time, observe your mind and body. Do you feel calmer? More focused? More like yourself? More peaceful? If yes, you're not losing them. You're finding yourself. Another question to ask: am I staying because of love or because of fear? Love says, this is mutual and healthy. Fear says, I don't want to start over. Fear says, what if no one else wants me? Fear says, what if they change and I miss it? But you cannot build a life on fear. Stoicism teaches courage, not loud courage, but quiet courage. The courage to do what's right even when it hurts. Now, we must address an important distinction. Distancing does not mean hatred. You can distance with compassion. You can say, I wish you well, but I cannot keep exposing myself to this. That is emotional maturity. Psychology calls this loving detachment. Stoicism calls it self-respect. Now let's talk about something even deeper. Sometimes the reason distancing hurts is because you're not only losing the person, you're losing a role. Some people stay in relationships because they are the fixer, the healer, the rescuer, the provider, the emotional punching bag, and that role became their identity. So when you distance, it feels like emptiness. Who are you if you're not saving them? Who are you if you're not proving your worth? This is why letting go is identity work. And the Stoics would remind you, your identity should be based on virtue, not on roles you perform to earn love. You are not valuable because you sacrifice yourself. You are valuable because you live with integrity. Now, distancing can also require communication. Sometimes, if the relationship is worth saving and the problem is boundaries, not toxicity, you may choose a direct conversation. The key is, don't communicate to convince. Communicate to clarify. Say, when this happens, I feel this, I need this boundary. Then watch behavior, not promises, because character is revealed in patterns, not apologies. Now, let's go further. Some of the hardest people to let go of are not bad people. They are simply misaligned. They may be good-hearted but inconsistent, kind but emotionally immature, loving but not ready. So you keep hoping they'll become who you need, and hope becomes a prison when it replaces reality. So here is a line that may change your life. Don't attach yourself to someone's potential at the cost of your peace. Potential is not commitment. Potential is not consistency. Potential is not character. Letting go often means choosing reality over fantasy. Now, in the next block, we're going to explore something that many people ignore: how meaningful conversations and support systems help you let go properly. Because letting go is not just solitude. It is also connection, the right kind. One of the most overlooked parts of letting go is this: the mind heals faster when it has healthy mirrors. When you're alone too long with your thoughts, your mind becomes a courtroom. You become both the prosecutor and the defendant. You accuse yourself, defend yourself, replay evidence, rewrite history, and you live inside arguments that never end. That's why meaningful conversations matter. Not conversations that gossip, not conversations that inflame bitterness, not conversations where someone tells you, "Forget them, bro," like your heart is a computer file. Real conversations, honest ones, wise ones. Stoicism often gets misunderstood as isolation, but it's not. Stoicism values community. It values learning from others. It values exchanging perspectives to sharpen your thinking. Seneca wrote about friendship as a place where virtue grows. He believed you should associate with people who elevate you, not people who drag you into chaos. Psychology agrees. Strong social support is one of the biggest predictors of emotional resilience. So, here's a key. The right conversations don't keep you stuck, they set you free. Because a trusted person can remind you of reality when your mind is romanticizing. A trusted person can challenge distortions when you're blaming yourself for everything. A trusted person can give you perspective when you're drowning in emotion, but not everyone deserves that access to your inner world. So here's your first step. Identify your safe people. Safe people don't mock your pain, rush your healing turn everything into drama, make your vulnerability a weapon. Safe people do. Listen without judgment, speak truth with care, encourage boundaries, remind you of your worth. Now, here's how to use conversations for healing without becoming dependent. Because yes, people can replace one attachment with another. They lose one person and then cling to their friend's validation like oxygen. So the goal is not to make someone else your emotional crutch. The goal is to use conversation as clarity, not as addiction. Here's a practical approach. Name what you feel, not what they did first. What you feel. I feel confused. I feel grief. I feel anger. I feel rejection. Ask for what you need, not fix me, but I need perspective. I need to be heard. I need help staying disciplined. End with a next step. Healing requires action. After the conversation, decide one small action to protect your peace. Now, this matters because letting go is not only emotional, it's behavioral. If you keep living like you're still attached, your mind stays attached. So after conversation comes structure, and structure is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. Now, let's transition into boundaries, because boundaries are the bridge between understanding and freedom. Emotional boundaries are the invisible lines that separate your emotions from someone else's emotions. Without emotional boundaries, you absorb everything. Their stress becomes your stress. Their negativity becomes your negativity. Their chaos becomes your chaos. This is why so many caring people are exhausted. They confuse compassion with absorption. But compassion means, I understand your pain. Absorption means, I will carry your pain as if it's mine. Stoicism teaches inner sovereignty. Your inner world belongs to you. Epictetus said, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." That includes what happens emotionally around you. You cannot control someone else's emotional storms, but you can choose whether you build a house inside them. So here is a daily boundary practice. When someone is emotional, silently tell yourself, "Their emotions are theirs. My peace is mine." Then respond with empathy, not over-identification. You can say, "I hear you. I understand." That sounds hard. But you don't have to become their therapist, their savior, their punching bag, their emotional landfill. Before we continue, I want to take a moment to welcome you to God's Wisdom and Stoic Hacks, the place where timeless faith and practical philosophy meet. Here, we dive deep into relationships, self-mastery, and emotional resilience, guided by the eternal truths of God's Word and the discipline of Stoicism. Whether you're navigating heartbreak, seeking stronger relationships, or striving to live with purpose, this channel gives you the wisdom, strategies, and hacks to rise above life's challenges. Subscribe now and start building a faithful, stronger, wiser, and more unshakable you. Now, boundaries also apply to people you're letting go of. Here are powerful boundaries that accelerate healing. No checking their social media. No just one last message. No late-night nostalgia sessions. No stalking updates through mutual friends. No rereading old texts when you feel lonely. Because those habits are not memories. They are chains. Psychology would call this reinforcement. You're reinforcing attachment every time you seek the hit. So you detox. And detox is uncomfortable at first. That discomfort is not proof you're doing it wrong. It's proof your mind is resetting. Now, let's go deeper into something most people avoid: the fear of emptiness. When you let go of someone, you don't only lose them, you lose routines, you lose identity, you lose a future you imagined. So the space they leave behind can feel terrifying. This is why people return to toxic relationships, not because the person is good, but because emptiness feels unbearable. But emptiness is not your enemy. It is your rebuilding space. That space is where you create a new life, new routines, new purpose, new standards, new identity. And this is where Stoicism becomes your blueprint. The Stoics believed purpose is created through virtue, courage, discipline, wisdom, justice, temperance. So when you feel empty, you don't panic, you build. Ask, what would a disciplined man do today? Not what would a desperate man do, not what would an emotional man do. A disciplined man, he would sleep properly, eat properly, train his body, clean his environment, work with focus, pray, reflect, journal, invest in meaningful connection, refuse self-harm disguised as nostalgia. That's the path. And in the next blocks, we'll go further. Weighing the outcomes of separation, detoxing from social media, building gratitude and presence, cultivating flexibility, empathy without self-betrayal, nourishing mind and body, and finally, the ultimate practice, letting go without bitterness. Now we move into a decision that can reshape your entire life. Separation. Not the dramatic kind you announce with fireworks, but the quiet kind. The moment you realize you can't keep living like this. The moment you understand that staying connected to what drains you is not loyalty. It's self-abandonment. And yet, separation is hard because your mind immediately starts bargaining. It runs through scenarios like a machine. What if I'm overreacting? What if they change? What if I regret this? What if I never find someone else? What if I'm making a mistake? These questions feel intelligent, but many of them are anxiety disguised as logic. Stoicism teaches that wise decisions are not made in emotional fog. The Stoics trained themselves to step back and evaluate outcomes, not fantasies. They understood that the mind loves illusions, especially the illusion that if you hold on long enough, reality will reshape itself to match your desires. So here is the Stoic and psychological approach. Weigh the outcomes of separation with clarity. First, assess the emotional cost of staying. Ask yourself honestly, how do I feel on most days in this dynamic? Not on the best days, not when they're sweet, not when you're distracted, on most days. Are you calm? Are you stable? Or are you tense, anxious, hypervigilant, waiting for the next shift in their mood, the next disappointment, the next withdrawal? Because consistent anxiety is not love. It is your nervous system asking for safety. Psychology calls this chronic stress activation. When a relationship constantly triggers fear, the body stays on alert. Over time, you lose sleep. Your digestion changes. Your focus weakens. Your confidence drops. Your joy gets smaller. And you don't even realize the relationship is shrinking your life because you've normalized the pain. Now, second, assess the long-term cost. Ask, if nothing changes, where will I be in 1 year? In 3 years? In 5 years? Will I be stronger or more depleted? Will I be wiser or more bitter? Will I be growing or just surviving? Stoicism teaches that time is your most valuable currency. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself how brief life is. If life is short, why spend it negotiating for basic respect? Third, acknowledge the losses of separation without exaggerating them. Separation can bring grief, loneliness, social disruption, and even financial stress. Stoicism doesn't deny losses. It teaches you to face them without collapse. It teaches you to trade short-term discomfort for long-term peace. And this is a key truth. Most people don't fear losing the person as much as they fear losing the familiarity. Familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar freedom. But freedom is worth the discomfort. Now, here's a simple exercise that brings brutal clarity. Take a paper, 2 columns. On the left, if I stay. On the right, if I leave. Under each column, write consequences, not wishes, not maybe they'll change. Write what is likely based on patterns. Patterns are reality. Promises are noise. If they have shown you who they are repeatedly, believe the pattern. Now, one of the biggest traps is imagined worst-case scenarios. Seneca said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." The mind creates horror movies. I'll be alone forever. No one will love me. I'll lose everything. I'll never recover. But fear is not prophecy. Fear is a feeling, and feelings shift. So ask yourself, what is the realistic worst case? And what is the realistic best case? And what is most likely? Most likely, separation will hurt, and then your life will expand. Most likely, you will grieve, and then you will rebuild. Most likely, you will feel lonely, and then you will find deeper connection. Now, separation does not always mean cutting someone off completely. Sometimes it means redefining access, less time, less emotional exposure, less investment. This is especially true when you must remain connected. Co-parenting, family ties, workplace dynamics. In those cases, you practice detached engagement. You communicate respectfully, you remain fair, but you stop giving emotional control to the situation. This is a Stoic skill. Maintain your inner calm even while interacting with external chaos. Now, the most important question in weighing separation is this: am I staying because this nourishes me, or because I'm afraid of the consequences of leaving? If fear is the main reason, you are living as a hostage to your own anxiety. And that is not a life. That is a prison. So here is a phrase you can use when doubt attacks you. I can handle discomfort. I will not trade my peace for familiarity. Because peace is not negotiable. Now in the next block, we're going to address a modern addiction that secretly keeps millions of people trapped in emotional pain: social media. Because even if you separate physically, social media can keep you emotionally attached. It can reopen wounds daily. It can turn healing into torture. So let's talk about detoxing from social media, Stoic style. We live in an era where you can leave someone, but still watch them every day. You can break up, but still see their face, their life, their new friends, their new relationship, their new happiness, or at least the edited version of it. And nothing destroys inner peace faster than watching the highlight reel of someone who once held your heart. Social media can be useful. It can connect, it can educate, it can inspire, but it can also trap you in comparison, obsession, and emotional reactivity. It can keep you tied to people and situations long after they should have become memories. Stoicism teaches simplicity and focus. Marcus Aurelius warned about distraction. He knew the mind becomes weak when it is constantly pulled outward. He would tell you, reclaim your attention, because attention is your life. Psychology confirms it. Platforms are designed to hijack your focus. Every notification is a hook. Every scroll is reinforcement. Every like is dopamine. It trains your brain to crave stimulation and to avoid stillness. And yet stillness is where healing happens. Now, here's the real issue. When you're trying to let go, social media becomes a drug. You say you're just checking, but you're not checking. You're feeding your attachment. You check their page. Your chest tightens. Your heart speeds up. Your mind starts interpreting. Who is that? Where are they? Are they happier? Did they replace me? You've just injected stress into your nervous system, on purpose. Then you tell yourself you need closure. But what you're doing is reopening the wound. So detoxing from social media is not about being anti-technology, it's about being pro-peace. Step 1. Identify your triggers. Ask, when do I reach for social media? Is it boredom, stress, loneliness, avoidance, habit? Most people don't scroll because they're happy. They scroll because they want to escape something. Step 2. Set boundaries. Not vague ones like, I'll use it less. Real ones. For example, only check social media once per day at a specific time. Or set an app timer. Or remove the app from your phone and use it only on a computer. Step 3. Curate aggressively. Unfollow accounts that create anxiety, envy, lust, comparison, or negativity. Your feed is your mental diet. If you eat poison daily, don't ask why your mind feels sick. Now, if you're letting go of a specific person, here is the hard but necessary move. Block, mute, unfollow. Whatever is required to remove exposure. Some people resist this because they think it's immature. But it's not immature. It's disciplined. You're not blocking them to punish them. You're blocking them to protect you. Stoicism teaches you to do what is necessary, not what looks cool to others. Now, here is a powerful practice. The 24-hour detox test. For one day, no social media. None. No scrolling. No checking. No searching. Use the time to do things that reattach you to your real life. Clean your environment, work out, cook, read, pray, go outside, spend time with people who actually know you, journal, plan your goals. At the end of the day, ask, do I feel more present, more calm, more focused, more human? Most people do, because your brain begins to unclench when the noise stops. Now, Stoicism also teaches that comparison is a trap. Social media is an endless comparison engine. You compare your behind the scenes to other people's highlight reels, then you feel inferior. But the Stoics would say, your path is yours, your duty is yours, your growth is yours. What someone else posts does not define your worth. So here is a Stoic line you can repeat whenever comparison hits. I will not measure my life with someone else's illusions. Because social media is illusion, it is a curated performance. Now, detoxing from social media creates something many people fear: silence. And in silence, emotions rise. Grief rises, loneliness rises, thoughts rise. This is why people return to scrolling. They want to drown out the inner world. But the inner world is not your enemy. It is your teacher. So when silence comes, don't panic. Sit with it. Breathe. Let feelings move through you without turning them into actions. In psychology, this is called distress tolerance. In Stoicism, it is called strength. Now, once you reduce digital noise, you create space for something deeper: your core needs. Because many people are attached to people and situations they shouldn't be attached to simply because they don't have a strong foundation in their own life. And that's what we'll build next. Prioritizing core needs so your inner peace becomes stable, not dependent. Letting go becomes easier when your life becomes fuller. Most people struggle to release unhealthy attachment because the attachment is filling a gap. And if you remove it without building something stronger, you feel empty, restless, and pulled back to what hurts. So now we talk about core needs. Not wants, needs. Wants are loud, needs are quiet. Wants say, I want attention, I want validation, I want them back. Needs say, I need safety, I need peace, I need purpose, I need rest, I need meaning. Stoicism teaches minimalism of desire. Epictetus said, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. The Stoics believed the more you chase, the more you suffer. Peace comes from aligning your life with essentials. Psychology agrees. Well-being increases when your basic psychological needs are met: autonomy, competence, connection. Autonomy means you feel in control of your choices. Competence means you feel capable and progressing. Connection means you feel bonded to healthy people. So here's a question that reveals why you're stuck. What need was that person or situation meeting for me? Maybe it was connection. Maybe it was identity. Maybe it was excitement. Maybe it was comfort. Maybe it was validation. Maybe it was a sense of being chosen. Now, be honest. Can you meet that need in healthier ways? Because if you try to let go without meeting your needs, your brain will pull you back like gravity. So let's build a foundation. First, identify your top 5 core needs right now. For example, rest and sleep, physical movement and health, meaningful connection, quiet reflection, spiritual practice, purpose and progress in work or craft. Now, next to each one, write a small action you can do this week. Small, not heroic. If your need is rest, go to bed 30 minutes earlier. If your need is movement, walk 20 minutes daily. If your need is reflection, journal 5 minutes. If your need is connection, call a friend once this week. If your need is purpose, finish one task you've been avoiding. Small actions create momentum. Momentum creates identity. Identity creates freedom. And this is critical. When your life is structured, your attachment weakens because you're not wandering mentally. You're not giving your mind endless room to romanticize the past. Now, many people feel guilty prioritizing their core needs. They think self-care is selfish. Stoicism would destroy that lie. The Stoics believed self-mastery is duty. Caring for your mind and body is not vanity. It is stewardship. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Also, boundaries become easier when you respect your own needs. If you don't respect your needs, you will accept situations that violate them. So, here's a line you can use when guilt tries to trap you. My needs matter. My peace matters. I am allowed to protect my life. Now, core needs also include emotional needs, safety, respect, consistency. And this is where people get trapped, because they confuse intensity with love. Intensity is not love. Consistency is love. Drama is not love. Safety is love. Chemistry is not love. Character is love. So as you rebuild, you begin to raise your standards. You begin to realize, I don't want someone who makes my heart race. I want someone who makes my mind calm. That is inner peace. Now, to strengthen your inner peace, you need one of the most powerful habits ever: gratitude and presence. Because attachment often lives in 2 places, the past and the future. Regret lives in the past. Anxiety lives in the future. Peace lives in the present. So, in the next block, we'll train the mind to return to now. Not as a cliché, as a tool, as a discipline, as a form of Stoic power. If you want inner peace, you must master the present moment, because the present is the only place where your power exists. The past is memory. The future is imagination. But the present is real. And that is where your life is happening. Yet most people live everywhere except the present. They replay what happened. They rehearse what should have happened. They fear what might happen. And they miss what is happening. Stoicism was obsessed with the present, not because the Stoics were naive, but because they understood attention is life. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not dwell on the past or dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment." Psychology says the same thing through mindfulness, the ability to observe your thoughts and feelings without becoming them. Gratitude is the doorway to presence. Gratitude interrupts the mind's addiction to lack. It shifts you from what I don't have to what I still have. And that shift reduces suffering. Now, gratitude is not pretending everything is good. Gratitude is seeing reality fully. It says, life has pain, and it also has gifts. So here's a simple daily practice that builds emotional resilience. Every morning or every night, name 3 things you're grateful for. Keep it real. Keep it small. Warm water, a safe bed, your breath, a friend, a meal, another day to rebuild. This practice trains your mind to notice good without waiting for perfection. Now, presence is also a weapon against rumination. Rumination is the mind's habit of chewing on pain like it will eventually turn into wisdom, but rumination often turns into self-torture. Presence breaks that loop. When you feel the mind spiraling, do this. Pause and name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. This is grounding, psychology's tool for bringing you back into the body, and the body lives in the present. Now, here's why this matters for letting go. Attachment thrives on mental time travel. You picture the past, you imagine the future, you create scenes, you create conversations, you create regrets. But those scenes are not happening now. They're happening in your mind. So the practice becomes return to now again and again, not as a fantasy, as discipline. Ask yourself throughout the day, what is required of me right now? Not what do I wish happened, not what should they have done, not what will happen later, right now. This is Stoic power, focusing on the next right action. And when you focus on right actions, you stop feeding the attachment. Now, gratitude also helps you release entitlement. Sometimes we suffer because we believe life owed us a certain outcome, a certain relationship, a certain apology, a certain fairness. But Stoicism teaches life is not obligated to match your expectations. Your duty is not to demand outcomes. Your duty is to respond with virtue. So instead of saying, "Why did this happen to me?" Stoicism asks, "How will I respond?" That question changes everything. Now, presence does not remove pain instantly, but it removes unnecessary pain. It removes the second arrow. The first arrow is the event. The second arrow is your interpretation, your rumination, your self-attack. So the practice is, feel the pain, but don't poison it with extra suffering. Now, once you cultivate gratitude and presence, you become more flexible. And flexibility is the next essential skill in letting go, because life will not always go according to plan. People will disappoint, situations will change, your goals will shift, your identity will evolve. So the next block is about flexibility and adaptability, the Stoic ability to bend without breaking. Life is unpredictable. No matter how disciplined you are, no matter how carefully you plan, unexpected change will always arrive. People change, jobs change, health changes, relationships shift, plans collapse. And the question is not whether change will come. The question is whether you will break when it comes. Stoicism teaches adaptability as strength, not the weak kind of anything goes, but the strong kind of I will not collapse when life shifts. Epictetus taught that your peace depends not on what happens, but on how you respond. That response requires flexibility. Psychology calls this psychological flexibility, the ability to experience difficult emotions without becoming controlled by them, and to choose actions aligned with your values. So if you want to let go, you must build flexibility, because often attachment is rigidity. Attachment says, it must be them. It must be this outcome. It must happen this way. But reality doesn't obey your rigidity. reality moves, and when you refuse to move with it, you suffer. So, here is the Stoic mindset. Adjust without losing your principles. You can change direction without losing dignity. You can accept change without becoming passive. Flexibility begins with acceptance, not approval. Acceptance. Approval says, "This is good." Acceptance says, "This is real." Once you accept, you stop wasting energy fighting what already happened. Now here's a practical tool you can use anytime life changes unexpectedly. The 3 A's. Accept. Acknowledge the change. Assess. Identify what is in your control. Adapt. Choose the best next action. This simple framework is Stoicism in motion. Now, adaptability also requires emotional resilience. When change happens, emotions rise. Fear, frustration, sadness, anger. Most people try to suppress these emotions, then they explode later. Stoicism does not teach suppression. It teaches regulation. It teaches you to observe emotions without obeying them. So when fear rises, you say, "I feel fear. That doesn't mean I'm in danger." When sadness rises, you say, "I feel sadness. That doesn't mean my life is over." When anger rises, you say, "I feel anger. That doesn't mean I must react." This is emotional sovereignty. Now, adaptability also means being willing to release old versions of yourself. Sometimes the hardest thing to let go of is not the person. It's the identity you had with them. The identity of being needed. The identity of being chosen. The identity of being a certain type of man. But you are not here to remain the same. You are here to evolve. So ask yourself, what version of me needs to die so the stronger version can live? That's not morbid. That's transformation. Now, as you adapt, you also cultivate empathy and generosity, but with boundaries. Because letting go can turn some people bitter. They become cold. They become vengeful. They become numb. But that is not peace. That is armor. True peace is soft, but strong. Calm, but firm. Kind, but not foolish. Stoicism teaches compassion. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that people act from their understanding. That doesn't excuse harm, but it helps you release resentment. Because resentment keeps you tied to the past. Forgiveness is not saying what happened was okay. It is saying, "I refuse to keep drinking poison, hoping it hurts the other person." Now, generosity and empathy also re-anchor you in purpose. When you stop being obsessed with your pain, your mind opens. Helping others, listening, being present, these acts restore meaning, but always with boundaries. You give from overflow, not from emptiness. Now, finally, everything comes back to one foundation. Nourish your mind and body, because you cannot maintain inner peace if you live in constant depletion. Sleep matters, food matters, movement matters, sunlight matters, stillness matters, spiritual practice matters, clean environment matters. So here is your daily Stoic routine for letting go. Simple, not perfect. Wake up and breathe slowly for 2 minutes. Remind yourself, I control my mind, not outcomes. Do one act of movement, walk, stretch, work out. Do one act of progress, one task that builds your future. Do one act of connection, healthy conversation or kindness. End the day with gratitude and reflection, and then repeat. Because letting go is not a speech, it's a lifestyle. Now let's bring it home. Letting go isn't about giving up, it's about making space. Space for peace, space for growth, space for a future that doesn't require you to shrink. You don't lose control when you let go. You gain control over your mind, your energy, your time, your direction. So here is the closing question. What is one thing you're ready to release today? A person, a story, a resentment, a fantasy, a habit, a fear? Release it, not dramatically, but deliberately, because every small release is a step toward freedom. Until next time, stay strong, stay disciplined, stay grounded, and keep letting go of what no longer serves you, so you can make room for what truly matters. At God's Wisdom and Stoic Hacks, we blend biblical truth with Stoic philosophy to help you grow stronger in love, life, and faith. Whether you're facing heartbreak, seeking emotional resilience, or looking for timeless wisdom, this channel equips you with the tools to thrive. Relationships can bring joy or pain. My mission is to give you clarity, wisdom, and a little laughter along the way, so you can recognize the traps, heal from heartbreak, and build the kind of love that brings peace instead of suffering, and also to know how and when to exit an unhealthy relationship. Think of this channel as your relationship coach, your comic relief, and your reminder that you deserve better, all rolled into one. Stay faithful, stay stoic, and stay strong. Don't just scroll away. Subscribe, because wisdom is free, but ignoring it can cost you your peace.